Welcome to a very special episode of Fellowship in Essential Oil. It's special for a few reasons today. First of all, this is our 100th episode, and I can't wait to see the cake that Liz has made for me. Secondly, we're going to be diving into not one of my favorite essential oils, but three today. We're looking at Japanese cypresses, and if we're talking about three oils, we need more than two. We need three people joining us from across a couple of ponds, I guess. Angela Sidlo in the USA. Liz and Angela, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Lovely to see you, Ange.
Yeah, you too.
So today we're going to be exploring three different cypress essential oils. Now, normally when we think about cypresses, we think about those more common ones that we get around, Europe and so on, and they're just normally labeled as cypress. But there are some amazing ones in Australia. We'll have to cover them at a later date, but also some really beautiful ones that are indigenous to Japan. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I think the best one to start with, probably the best known of the three, and that's Hinoki. How do you love this one, Angela?
Mm, I got this Hinoki several years ago, and then I was exposed to it even more with another aromatherapy teacher in Australia. And this oil it feels like it has some depth to it. And I really love the history of it and how it was used to construct temples in Japan, and it just feels like this holy wood to me.
Amazing, yeah. And in your practices, how do you normally use this essential oil?
Well, first of all, I would do it in a meditation. I would use it on an acupoint that we know as yin tong, which in Chinese medicine is one of the extra points. It's not exactly on a meridian, but it helps you just do this inward reflection. And I feel like Hinoki uh, grounds me and takes me to that meditative space.
It's so much like that, isn't it? It feels like a really bad choice of words to describe Hinoki, but whenever I'm talking about it, I always say it's a very Zen type of oil, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. And I love that, another, I believe that there's a bit of a practice of making bathtubs out of it. And so, you can imagine heating that wood and having that oil, I know, Liz, you like a good old bath. We need to I know what to get you for your birthday, a bath made
Yeah,
out of Hinoki.
no, I'll go for that. I read it this morning. I'd never seen that before, and I was like, "That's it. That's what I need. I need a Hinoki bath." Um, but I just want to stop us for a moment and say these are not cypresses, though. Did you
These are
know that?
cedarwoods.
And neither are they cedars. So you'll see them written down as Japanese cedars. So, for example, when you buy Sugi in the UK, it's written as Japanese cedar. But it's very much the same sort of situation as when the settlers or the colonialists went to North America and they saw these beautiful, tall, towering trees with very straight wood that would be easy for construction, and they called it a cedar. And these come from the genus cypress, but these are, well, this one's Chymocyperus, so it's not a cedar. It's from the same genus as cedar. Sorry, as same genus as cypress, but none of them are cypresses, interestingly. But yes, I really agree with what Ange said, that it's a very, very holy wood. But I just want to position it slightly differently, because we have to be careful when we're talking about Japanese trees, not to kind of center them in the same way as we would religiously here as like the Abrahamic one monotheistic religion. In Japan, all trees are holy, and all trees contain what they call the kami, the spirits. So we have to be very careful to make sure that we say that these are all holy. But if George were to say, but some are more holy than others, that would be absolutely right about Hinoki, because this is the oil of the temples.
Very much so. Now, Angela, we kind of dived in, and I got all excited about talking about these, and you referred to using them on a acupressure point. Would you tell us a little bit more about why we would use essential oils in this form of way? It's not maybe a common way that you'd hear about all the time, but that's one thing I've learned a little bit about from you, and I think others would really benefit from it.
Well, it's interesting, especially with Hinoki, because Hinoki also has some uh, immune supporting qualities to it. So, working with colds, flu, chronic cough, and excessive phlegm. And I want to kind of key in on that in regards to talking about a point, because our body is this super highway of energy. We call it chi. In Japan, they would call it ki. Um, and so we want to move the blood and move the energy in the body. That's sort of some of the basic principles of Chinese medicine. When we use an essential oil on an acupressure or an acupuncture point, we are taking the fragrance energetics and inviting those energetics into that little portal, that vortex, to dance or talk or have a cup of tea with our chi. And there's this beautiful magic that happens that actually stimulates other chemical responses in the body to find balance. And when we're talking about dampness in the body, I love the thought of using Hinoki on an acupuncture point called spleen 6 because it helps move dampness out of the body. And so it's 3 finger widths up from the inner ankle bone. And you'll find that little point. It'll often be sore. Some of these points will be tender. But letting the energy, this beautiful ancient frequency of Hinoki, permeate through this little vortex and shift different chemistry in the body to relieve dampness, to support your immune system, and just have this conversation. And it's wonderful. And the more you do it, the more your body's like, oh, Hinoki's here. We're going to have a party.
I love that. So for those people at home that wanted to try this, basically they're just getting a drop of Hinoki on the finger and holding it on that spleen 6 point.
Yes, I like to dilute it, and Hinoki is such a powerful oil. I would probably even go as low as 10% dilution with a carrier oil just to get that essence to frequency to start flowing into the meridian. Yeah.
And just holding it on that point for a
Yeah,
amount of time.
just hold it 1 to 3 minutes. And sometimes you can even feel that shift. Maybe you'll feel a little bit lighter. There's all kinds of different ways the body signals that it's happy or it's content or it's balanced.
And I know you mentioned this was a really good counteraction for dampness, which is one of the four kind of imbalances, I guess you'd say, in traditional Chinese medicine. Um, were you saying it was like phlegminess would be what some of the symptoms of that dampness, or what else would we do
Yeah,
that point
it could
for?
be phlegm. It could relate to the urogenital lower pelvic bowl. Maybe it's heavy periods or, just a heaviness that you're feeling, bloated. Right now we're in the earth element, so we're working, it's that transitional phase between seasons. So we're boosting the immune system, and that's all about the spleen and the stomach. And so I really feel like Hinoki has some good places to be here. Even if we're working with lung one for working with some grief, those conifers are so good for helping us with the grieving process.
I love that. I love that. And would you, with your practice in essential oils, would you use it mainly for just on those acupressure points, or have you used it in other ways, such as diffusion or so on as well?
Oh, sure. I would do it. I'm a reflexologist by trade as well. So I would use it in a reflexology session, working any of those organ points and organ systems. So yeah, I use it topically. I use it as aromatic. I may put it in a diffuser. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Liz, I know you were diving a little bit into, each of the oils and how they'd been used and the trees in the past. What else did you uncover about Hinoki?
Well, so actually, there's current medicine that's really interesting about Hinoki. And that was a trial was done by Japanese scientists in 2015. And because it's one of these woods that they construct lots of things out of, they'd said, well, what's interesting is lots of people report feeling better when they've been in one of these buildings. So, how could we perhaps look at using that to help on a wider scale for things like when people are at work? So, they've done a lovely trial where they put a set of young men, it was a small trial, set of young men into a building that was made of Hinoki, but then also diffused Hinoki oil while they were doing maths calculations. And it was seen that it was said that this seemed like a very monotonous thing that people must have to do. And my son would just have a field day with what an atrocity that is to say about maths. But they'd said, well, the thing is, for mental health, people have to do very boring jobs for a very long time, and this is very stressful, and therefore it affects the mental health, and so therefore that affects time off, etc., etc., etc. So if we intercede with Hinoki essential oil, can we do something about that? And what they found was it didn't make the maths any less boring, but what it did was it suppressed something called the DHEAs. So I'm going to read off my piece of paper, even though I've rehearsed it a million times. So this is dihydroepiandrosterone sulfate, and that is a precursor to cortisol. So what they were able to see was when you inhaled Hinoki oil, what it did was it actually suppressed the I've just realised I'm telling you about Sugi oil here. So let's go back to the DHA. But the Hinoki oil, what they were able to see was that the heart rates came down and the blood pressure came down. And so they were able to see that the parasympathetic system kicked in. And so you had this really fast rest and restore response. So you were able to see that people were calmer just from sniffing the Hinoki oil.
Wow, amazing. And this is one of an amazing oil I really love. It's one that I will use a lot for the throat chakra. It's, when we think about throat chakras, we do think about things like our eucalyptuses and so on, things that actually help with that respiratory system. And it's interesting, Angela, that you were talking about it being good for that phlegm aspect of things. But I really lean into this aspect that these trees are renowned for how straight and upright and strong they grow. And so we've had several references to them being used for buildings and often spiritual buildings and pagodas because of just their ability to, grow so straight and be so strong. So I find that Hinoki is really great when there is situations where people aren't being clear with their communication, or there's a need to be clear with your communication. It helps you to be clear, concise, and deliberate. So possibly a really great time that you might want to lean into your Hinoki would be times such as Mercury retrogrades, when sometimes our communication can get a little bit confuddled and we're going all over the place, or we just are struggling to get our words out. Sometimes, and we all meet those people who can often tell a short story in a long way, and they need to use 500 words to tell a 50-word thing. And I think Hinoki is a really beautiful one for this. Now, as we start to work with this essential oil more, what it allows us to do, because this real kind of peacefulness that it brings as well, it allows us to get not only our words in alignment, but get them in alignment with our thoughts and in alignment with our actions. Now, I'd really encourage everyone to think about how often we're thinking one thing, but we say another, and then we end up doing something else. And I like to think of these three actions as actually being frequencies that are going out to the universe. And if we are saying one thing, thinking another, and doing another thing, we're sending mixed messages out to the world on a practical level. Everyone around us wonders what on earth we're doing. We feel that we're unintentional in our behaviors as well. And on a vibrational level, that's also sending out mixed messages as well. Hinoki helps you to align all these three together. And as we align these three and feel really at peace with actually saying what we're feeling and then having the courage and the strength to be direct and do what we need to do, this can really, it can bring manifestation and bring real power into this as well. The final thing I kind of find that I like about Hinoki is often when we think about the throat chakra, we think, oh, it's going to allow me to speak up and to be louder and that type of thing. Whereas I actually find this oil teaches us the power of speaking softly. And we all know what happens when someone raises their voice. We tend to take a step back and get defensive and so on. But a soft and a gentle and a deliberate voice can actually be more inviting, can be, I don't want to use the word persuasive in a manipulative way, but can be more comforting and can be more effective in this way. So I really think that the strength of Hinoki, when applied and worked with the throat chakra, can be really quite profound compared to what we might normally think the throat chakra may be, or how we'd use other oils like common ones like eucalyptus in that way as well. What, Angela?
Okay, can I add another super layer onto that?
I would love you to.
Because Hinoki is something, it's an oil that promotes an inner calm and harmony, but at the same time, it also promotes confidence and self-esteem. So sometimes when I'm having a difficult conversation where I really want to be able to use my voice in a good way, in a wise way, I'll place my finger on CV22, which is right here in the throat latch. Okay, our conception vessel, which runs down the front of our body, and the governing vessel, which runs down the back of our spine, they're created, they come into existence prenatally. They're one of our first vessels that we get in utero. And so they provide this energy circulation around our bodies, top to bottom, bottom to top. So we have this energy wheel circulating around us. So tapping in there, maybe with a drop of Hinoki when I'm needing to speak something important, that I want to get the communication out, that I don't want Mercury retrograde to scramble. I'm sure you have a crystal we could place there as well, is so helpful because it taps into that energy of calm and harmony, yet confident self-esteem.
So true. So true. And one thing, I'm guessing some people may not have smelt this aroma. Liz, I know you're kind of newer to Hinoki. How would you describe the aroma of it?
So actually, so no, you're wrong. I've had a bottle of Hinoki for about 10 years. Somebody sent it to me actually when I was writing the complete guide. And I was like, that's horrible. And so I didn't like it at all. So then when you said you were going to do this, I said, right, well, I've got to go and buy a new bottle in case it was the bottle. And so I did buy a new bottle and it was better. But then when you came across and came to say and bought me, I have to say the doTERRA one is the nicer one that I've found. So I really like it. And I would say it's kind of got like, you can smell the alpha-pinene. There is a definite sense of pininess to it, but it's kind of powdery and like you can smell the mists of Japan. I think it's kind of very light, very soft. When you breathe it, it feels like your breath goes lighter. It's very, very nice. But I have to say, we've got all these three different oils. We've got Sugi and Hiba Wood to talk about, and I think they all smell quite similar. What does
Mm.
everybody else think?
Mm.
Angela, what would you say for Hinoki's
Yeah,
aroma?
well, the Hinoki does have that misty aromatic. I do feel like I'm up in the mountains. But I have two different Sugis. I have one because they have the Cryptomeria japonica in the Azores, and that's where I was first introduced to it. So um, when we talk about Sugi, I'll share a little story. But I think Sugi has more it has a lighter finish on it. At least the one that I've got.
Mm. I'd
So
say with Hinoki, I almost have to always remind myself what it smells like, and it's almost as though, like what I was talking about in that subtleness of its aroma, it's not one that kind of really imprints or makes a big impression, and you almost have to. I can see Liz kind of agreeing with me there. That you've got to kind of smell it hard to actually get a
mhm.
true essence of what it is. And I think that kind of aligns very well with its energy. That this isn't one that's going to be screaming at the top of the lungs and hitting you over the back of the head. You've really got to quieten the mind and really give it its full attention to really kind of get the different layers and the different chemistry out of it as well. So I really love it for that. Now, for me, I really love it for the throat chakra. I tend to associate it with its directness with Saturn as well. As we've been having this conversation, Liz, have you had any feelings about Hinoki in that way?
No, no, no. You know how sometimes I've said this before. Sometimes it's like my body just goes, I don't understand this oil, and I don't understand these oils. I can't actually translate anything to the psychic side at all. Only what's on the pieces of paper.
Really interesting. You've had that
Sorry.
experience mainly with Australian oils in the past, haven't you?
Australian
But
oils, it's like when I've got no cultural link to them. No.
yeah. How about
But what I feel like this oil is doing, this Hinoki, is it's asking me to slow down because it doesn't rise to the top, so it's not there screaming at you like everything else is screaming at us around. And what it does is it's sort of mysterious. It says, "Do you want to come in? Do you want to really come to that quiet space and be with me?" And you have to take the invitation if you want to
mm,
go in.
but you've got to have that patience with it, don't you, as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, we could
It's
probably all zen out and speak about Hinoki forever, but we better move on to our other oils as well. So, Sugi, I believe you hinted before, Angela, that you've got a really great story about Sugi.
We did some forest bathing when I was in the Azores last year with our dear beloved past Jonathan Benvides. And we got to hang out in bare feet, hugging these beautiful Japanese trees. And a lot of the distillation places that we went, they were wood firing these to create these essential oils to distill. And they were using this Japanese wood, sugi, to fire the stills. It was like, so there was the addition of the sweetness of the geranium that we saw that was fired and created with the heat from this wood. And it was fantastic. So I really got to know this oil I got a really good introduction to it. I'll say that.
I bet, I bet. And I'm smelling my Sugi. And I like what you said. You said it had a bit of a lighter note at the end. Was that your
Yeah,
description
it's
for it?
got a little bit of a lift at the end. And when you look at how tall those trees stand, I mean, they're like some of our spruce trees here. But when I think of that and I think of an acupoint, I think of a governing vessel. Here, we're on the back now. And governing vessel is where if you would put your hands on your natural waist, you would find governing vessel. And typically I would use silver fir on it, but it's right there. And this is called the Destiny Gate. And I love it because it's right between the kidneys and it's sort of like your pilot light. So it lights that pilot light of your life force energy so that your inner light can shine out. And I think that's what Sugi does for me. It just feels like it's making me stand upright and shine my light out to the world.
I love that. So we've talked about Hinoki and we're now on to Sugi. They're both very peaceful oils. How would you separate the two and say Hinoki's more this, Sugi's more this, and so on?
Well, I still go back to, Hinoki being that, that ancient building the temples. I feel like Sugi has a place as a sacred oil as well. But I think it's better for like anxiety, stress, nervous tension, those kinds of things. I would definitely use it on ear shenmen, which is, balancing the left and right hemisphere of the brain and bringing us into parasympathetic. Um, so, yeah, I think it has some deeper uses for integrating body, mind, and spirit all together.
Yeah, I love it. And Liz, what did you find out about Sugi?
So you're quite right, Andrew, when you say that it is also a sacred oil. So the legend is that the very first creator, Suzanne Su, walked the earth and needed trees to keep him company. So he took hairs from his head and threw those on the ground, and those grew into trees. And he took the hairs from his beard and threw those onto the ground, and sugi trees grew. And he said these sugi trees are for people to build houses for people to live in. So the Hinoki is for the temples, and this is the divine uh, um, requisite that people's houses were built for this. Now, if you go back to the trial that I completely got into the wrong place and think about these people doing their maths, very bored, these young men being tested, what they found was if they were inhaling sugi oil, then that actually reduced the DHEA, which is, I'm going to read it again, dehydroepiandrosterone sulfate, which is the precursor to cortisol, which means that one's body does not have a stress response to work. So can you imagine that? You come home from work, you sit down in a house, and your house says, no, it's not stressful. No, just relax. Can you imagine that? I mean, that is God-given, right? But also there's a lovely old legend about a holy man that died, and his son decreed that everybody had to put stone lanterns on the walkway up to his tomb. And one man was like, well, I can't afford to do that. So he said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to plant sugi trees. So the legend says that he and his family planted an avenue of 20,000 sugi trees. And so there's this beautiful sacred avenue of these trees. And it's said, so I mentioned earlier that the trees all house a kami, the spirit, or sometimes called Shin. So Shinto, that's the name of it. So that's what the religion means, the blessing of the gods, although they're not gods, they're spirits, blessing of the spirits. So the kami is the protector. So around the Hinoki temples are planted sugi trees. And if you want to talk to the kami, then one would approach with great reverence, of course, and take a breath, but then bow. And then clap twice. And the kami will observe. And it said that you should always purify yourself before going and talking to a kami. So this isn't necessarily like washing, but it's purify one's thoughts. And it said that if you walk through the air of the sugi trees, that will purify your thoughts. So it's very, very lovely for nervous system, I think, really is that it is the big thing. And I think that we can really get tied down into, oh, it can do this for cancer or it can do this for antimicrobial. But I think in this day and age, something that is really profoundly good for the nervous system is really worth knowing about.
It's very rich in resins too, isn't it? Which prevents
Yeah.
decay just in the wood in general. And aren't there certain areas of Japan now where there are like there's a national park, what is it called?
Yakushima.
Yeah, Yakushima National Park, where you can go and see some of these really ancient sugi trees.
You
Yeah, I
can.
mean, I think
Oh,
some of them are as old as 700 years, aren't they? But I think that with all of these, you're talking about things that are very, very waterproof, very, very repellent to insects. So mosquitoes, termites, you can find all that kind of science. But yeah, so but also that these are on one hand endangered. Most not Hiba Wood's not, but Hinoki and Sugi both have near threatened status, but the essential oils are being taken from places that are deliberately being built or grown, these reservations where they are planting these trees, and because it's important in Japanese, in Shinto religion, the plant has to reach a certain level where it's starting to kind of die off before they take the essential oil. So I think it's really interesting how yeah, they are definitely like water resistant and pest resistant, but also it's really sustainable crop.
Yeah.
I think that's
And it
really
kind of
important.
reminds me of this, speaking of being a holy oil, that there's this death and rebirth as it becomes an essential oil. And to me, that just sort of elevates it to being this holy oil. Sandalwood is like that as well. So,
And I think talking about that conservation aspect of things, the Japanese government is very kind of strict in the amount of, we don't have to worry that possibly we are endangering trees, like you said, Liz, as well. And a lot of the time, our essential oils are not. We're not growing trees to chop them down to make purely essential oils. A lot of the time, they're part of the lumber industry or something like that. And then the offcuts and the sawdust can be distilled to give us these
right.
beautiful essential oils. So a lot of the time, our essential oils that we hold in our little hand would have just been scraps that would have been thrown away or turned into mulch, but we just find one extra use out of it, which is really, really beautiful as well.
Yeah.
I
And
love,
incense.
what was that, sorry?
And incense. They're
Of
all
course.
really important in the Japanese incense. So they're using sawdust that from construction, and then that's been made into incense, but also the dust is also been made into essential oil.
Mm. I loved how you're able to, for us as well, Elizabeth, separate, the idea that Sugi came from the beard. That's really interesting. But also that the Hinoki was more the shrines and the temples, whereas Sugi was more the home. And with my work working with Sugi, I've really found it to be probably out of the three oils, the best one for helping us, first of all, find that kind of stillness. It was interesting you were talking about that kind of that cleansing. I wouldn't use it like I would a sage or a eucalyptus to cleanse, but that bringing in that stillness as well, or that silence. But I find this to be probably a really great one for connecting with our guides, our ancestors, and more kind of that coming back to our heritage in that type of way as well. So I love it for for that kind of aspect. It's a really beautiful one in that way as well. And I find this does kind of bring a bit of reverence to the past um, and from where we came from, and helping us to remember that as well. So a really good one, probably around the time of Samhain, of just remembering our heritage, our ancestors. I would lean into my Sugi in that time as well.
And I think there's a certain element that it allows us to trust our heart and our spirit, like bring that trust in so that you can make those other connections in your life. Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. So our third one in our list was our Hiba, which is probably, I must admit, it was the third one that came into my awareness. I'd heard about Hinoki and then Sugi later, and then I was like, oh, there's another one that kind of comes in there as well. Hiba, have you had any experience with this one, Angela?
No, I haven't. So I'm very excited to hear what you two have to say.
Yeah. This one went to smell this. It's very much like I think probably the closest I'd compare it to would be like the North American or the Canadian Nootka in its aroma. It's got more of that kind of woody woodwork kind of aroma to it, in my opinion. What do you find, Elizabeth?
Well, so Nutka is a Thuya as well, isn't it? This one's got Thuja plissins in it. So yeah, still don't think it's as strong as Nutka. I'm a big fan of Nutka.
Yeah.
But I have to say, of the three, this is my favourite. I like the other two, but I'm not feeling it the way that you two do. But this one has a lot more like medicinal properties proven to it. Very, very high in terpenes, so very good antimicrobial, antibacterial, antifungal. And so the wood, is, of course, is like antifungal, so it's not getting attacked by molds and stuff like that, and that carries across into the essential oil. But of the three, this would be my favourite.
Do you think, it's interesting that this is the least known of them, but you did mention before, Liz, that it's actually not endangered. Do you have any idea why maybe we don't hear about Hiba as much as we do the Sugi and the Hinoki?
Well, I don't think the stories are quite so glamorous. That it's like I say, to reiterate, they're all holy oils because there are spirits in all of the trees. That's what Shintoism says. But this one isn't like it's not what the temples are made of. There's no sort of edicts about one should live in this. But um, if one was to do a little prayer to the Hiba tree, you would ask about protection. So this is thought to be something that really brings longevity to your life, longevity to your house, of course, but also it's thought that being around Hiba can turn misfortune into fortune. So I think it's rather lovely. I really like this one. And the other thing is it's much cheaper than the others to buy because the yield is much larger. The Hinoki and Sugi have got really, really small yields. This one's not anywhere near so hard to get oil out of, I don't think.
Mm. As we kind of talk about Nootka and another oil, Arbor Vitae, which is also commonly found in Canada as well, those oils are really thick in those trees. And I would use Heber on a metaphysical way as well, very similar for that kind of, when insects will refuse to bore into wood and nothing will kind of get into the wood, and we can use that as a kind of insecticide or to protect us from different things as well. Energetically, that really helps to protect us from things that may threaten us. And as we've been talking today, I've been reflecting that these, as a trio, may be great ones to kind of sit with each Mercury retrograde for that. Hinoki is really great for the communication, and Hebrew, I find, just helps us to let go or not get pulled into the craziness of life. I find this a key word for this one really is stillness. We're constantly in a world where we're being encouraged, and being busy and being productive is often put on a pedestal. And I even notice I'll go, okay, I'm having an evening off. But then I'm like, oh, well, now I've had an evening off. What will I do with my evening off? And just before I sit down, I'll just do this and I'll just do this. And I'm like, oh, my evening off just turned it into another busy day. And this is a really nice grounding and strengthening one in that way to help us kind of feel okay with stepping out of that busyness. And I would almost use Hiba as my gateway. I would go Hiba for my stillness. Then I'd step into maybe Sugi for a bit of embracing silence, and then Hinoki for that kind of sacredness. And maybe in this garden that Liz kind of spoke to us before, that we had Hinoki in the center, surrounded by Sugi, maybe even on the outskirts and not getting an honorable mention, is that Hiba in that way. But I feel like they're kind of gateways through to these levels of, I guess, development or evolution as well. So, Angela, as we've been talking, have acupressure points kind of jumped forward for you?
Yes, but I do love the way you described sort of stair stepping and finally getting to the Hinoki at the end. It goes back to how we conversed about how it wants to invite you in, but you sort of have to be prepared to get to that gateway. So thank you for explaining it like that. When I think, when you first mentioned Hiba, because I haven't experienced it, I thought of arborvitae. So interesting that you mentioned it. But I think of our life force energy in Chinese medicine. We talk about our Jing. Our Jing is what we come into this world with, and it's really part of the kidney, our fortification through the kidneys. So two points that I would really think that Hiba could be really good on. The supreme stream, which is kidney 3, which is between the Achilles tendon and the inner malleolus there, the ankle bone. Really good point for any weak condition. So it's fortifying any weak condition. And then kidney 6, which is we call shining sea in Chinese medicine. And it brings perspective and clarity. So it's right below the ankle bone. You'll find a little divot there on both ankles. And it's one that I would use cypress on, so it's still in line. Kidney 3, I often use black spruce, so we're still in line with conifers. So I'm going to get some Hiba and try those.
There we go. So one question that we famously like to ask, especially as we've been getting to these rarer oils throughout this series, are these oils that we all need? What do you feel, Liz?
Mm.
I can live without them, but I think I know what Angie's going to say.
And what would you say?
Well, I always say there's a lid for every pot, right? And I think it's why I have my learning circle where people can try these different oils and see what resonates with them, and then be able to get those, because sometimes people just have an immediate response that says, "Oh, okay, that's an oil that's talking to your body through this acupoint." I have over 150 oils, but I'm blending and things like that. But I think someone could be just as content using 5 or 6 oils for a period of time, and then maybe add another one or another one. Get to know them. They're like friends. You can have 1,200 followers on your Facebook page, but how many of them are really your close friends that you would love to spend time with, right?
Very much so. And it's interesting, we've kind of, alluded to other trees, like Nootka and Arborvitae that are North American, and obviously there are other great trees all around the Northern Hemisphere. And so this would be a really, I think anyone in Asia aligning with these would be maybe better, although they're not as more famous. For those that are down here in Australia and New Zealand, we could talk about emerald, white, and blue cypress, but that's a whole different episode again, type of thing. But I think we've kind of alluded a lot to the sacredness of these oils, and I think probably, from a physical health point of view and from an acupressure point of view, there's probably other oils other people could use. But I think from a spiritual perspective, from you know, from someone who's visited Japan many, many times, and after 5 years of learning Japanese, I should be able to speak it, but shamefully cannot. There is a serenity and a peace that come from the lands of Japan and even the people of Japan that I think us, wherever we are in the world, and especially in parts of the Western world where we are a bit louder and a bit busier, they could really help us to kind of walk through those steps and that sacredness and that quietness in that type of way as well. So, do we need them? Maybe not, but I think it's a doorway or a garden path worth wandering down from time to time as well. Now, before we wrap up, we like to do a bit of shameless self-promotion. So, Ange, would you tell us a little bit more? We will put your links below on this episode, but tell us a little bit more about what you do and how people can find out about you.
I am the messenger of aromatherapy for around the world. 3 years ago, I did a little thing in the morning where I got online and did an oil and a point every day for 30 days. And that became the Aromatherapy deck. There's 49 points in this deck, and it's being used in schools, it's being used in hospice care, it's being used by counselors and coaches and individuals who want to have a deeper relationship with essential oils. And it can be found on angelasidlo.com/shop. And it's in there. It's a beautiful deck, and I'm so proud that it came into being. So
It's an amazing deck. I love it, and I've definitely leaned in it from time to time. And you also mentioned an oil learning circle. Is that something you do in person, or is that an online thing?
yeah, next month we'll be starting our year 3 of the AcuAroma Learning Circle, and it's the first Tuesday of every month. And I do a workbook. You get a downloaded workbook. The bonus for people coming in September for this 3rd year is that you'll have access to all the previous 24 workbooks. It's mind-blowing. And there's a special community that will be created where you'll get other bonuses during the month. So it's going to be really fun and lots of content in there.
And do you tend to kind of explore lesser known oils as part of that as well, do you?
Yeah, sometimes we do. And sometimes it's guided by the group. If the group is experiencing a lot of grief, then we're going to do a class on grief. Or if they're, if we had one that was the monkey mind, ruminating thoughts, and we had a great time with that. So it's definitely it's shaped by the community. So because it's for the community, and some wonderful things come up through that experience.
Amazing, amazing. Now, Liz, we have done 100 of these conversations with some
I know.
amazing guests, including Ange, and I'm not going to try and name all the others because I know I'll forget one or two of them. What are we going to do now?
Well, for start off, if you don't get on with the next bit, my poor little son Dexter's going to come and throttle you because he's like, I'm so sick of seeing that the 100th episode's coming and we haven't done it. But I'm really excited to dive into the next part about, we're just going to go completely full on spiritual stuff from now on. And we're going to start with the essential oils for the chakras. And have you got anything to say about it, Ad?
Yeah, I think, there are so many great teachers out there, and Liz is one of the best we can find, but you can find so much about the physicality of essential oils out there. So we wanted to kind of really dive deeper. We've had a lot of feedback about looking about that spiritual aspect. So you're exactly right. Our next episode, which will be out very soon, we've just got to get our new structure kind of together, but we're going to go through chakras. We're going to look at things like attracting love, protecting the home. We're going to bring in some astrology. There are so many different aspects that I think we had a bit of a planning meeting, didn't we, Liz? And we thought, we'll just work out the first few episodes. And I think we had to slow ourselves down because we've got 40 episodes already planned. We've just got to get ourselves sorted. So, yes.
We have a new name as well. So we will cease to be Fellowship in Essential Oils, because the purpose of Fellowship in Essential Oils was originally to show that people, that aromatherapists, and MLMs could actually get on without having a fight. But I think that we've managed to prove that. And so our new name will be Stick Scent.
Yes. But we will continue to be available where people have found us. So don't worry, we'll make sure that we just pop up where we normally would in our new format. It'll still be me and Liz banging on, but probably little quicker episodes as well, so people can really squeeze them in. But remember, if you haven't caught all of our 100 episodes, then you've got some back work to do, haven't you, as well? So, Angela, thank you so much for being our special guest on our 100th episode.
Oh, I'm honored. I didn't know it was going to be 100, and so I was like, that was like frosting on my cupcake today.
There you go. So we're all going to go eat the cake that Liz has arranged for us all. The joyous thing is we were able to we were able to do the impossible on the 100th episode. We were able to coordinate someone in America, someone in the UK, and someone in Australia. So Ange is about to go start her day. Liz is about to have her dinner. And I'm going to go back to bed after getting up after a couple of hours sleep.
Oh, wow.
Until we see you in the next episode, thank you so much for joining us and supporting Fellowship in Essential Oils. We'll talk to you soon about more gifts of Mother Nature and the plant kingdom. Take care and blessed be.
Thanks, Ange, and bye, everybody.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.